much and welcome to tonight's ordinary council meeting. Firstly, council acknowledges the traditional owners of these lands, waters and skies, the Wadawurrung people. We acknowledge and respect their continuing connections to their lands, waters, skies, culture, and the contribution they make to the life and spirit of our community. We pay respect to their past and present elders and their emerging leaders and extend this respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Thank you. Mr. CEO, we have present any apologies?
Shannon Maloney is an apology from the officers tonight.
Mr. Mayor, and obviously Councillor Grout is on a leave of absence.
Yep. Thank you. Item 3, pecuniary interest and conflicts of interest disclosures. Councillors, do we have any conflict of interest? No. No. Officers?
No, Mr. Mayor.
No. Thank you. As the CEO noted that Councillor Grout is on leave of absence. He's on his way to Canada. Item 5, public question time. 5.1 public question status update. No public questions are outstanding. Public questions. CEO, we have 5 public questions tonight.
I think we've got 6.
6.
Yes.
Sorry, I do apologise. Yes, it is 6. The first question from Carmen Bell. Carmen, you happy for me to read it out? Thank you. Question from Carmen Bell, public question. Who has been entrusted with the heritage review of Fisherman's Flat and what is the status of the review? So Carmen, Council has commissioned ecology and heritage partners to undertake the review of Fisherman's Flat. Today, an on-ground assessment of the precinct has been undertaken. Council will now receive a report from ecology and heritage partners setting out the findings of that assessment. So does that answer your question? Yep. Thank you. Public question number 2 is from Maureen Davin. I'm not too sure if Maureen's in the... You're happy for me to read it out, Maureen? Yep, thank you. The borough does a good job of maintaining open spaces, but with the devastation of Victoria Park and the resultant community distress, is the borough now galvanised to go beyond maintenance to actively plant and expand areas of native flora, to create green corridors and to encourage homeowners to expand their gardens to create a thriving biodiversity throughout the township of Queenscliff? Response: Council is planning to plant 300 trees throughout the borough this financial year. These plantings will be complemented by the plantings planned for Victoria Park. Council also sponsored the Jubilee Planting Project, which will be led by the Friends of Victoria Park, and Council has supported the Swan Bay Environment Association Pocket Park Planting initiative currently underway in Point Lonsdale. With respect to planting in private gardens, Council is aware that a number of our local residents work with the Swan Bay Environment Association and the Gardens for Wildlife program, which supports homeowners establish wildlife-friendly gardens. Information about this program can be found on the Swan Bay Environment Association website. What I can also say as Mayor is the borough has some beautiful private gardens, and Council appreciates and admires the care, creativity and work that many of our residents put into their gardens. So thank you, Maureen, and I hope that answers your question. Yep. Question 3 from the QCA. David, you happy for me to? Thank you. The agenda notes that the CEO, without Mayor and councillors, had a meeting with DELP and WorkSafe on August 16. Can the contents and minutes of that meeting and any associated or related correspondence be tabled tonight with an explanation of why council did not consider such a meeting to be of strategic importance to warrant councillor attendance, particularly given council's new Victoria Park policy, council's 23rd March recommendation, plans for the future directions and plantings of Victoria Park, widespread community concern and outrage over the unprecedented damage and destruction of Victoria Park. So Dave, we'll take that on notice and we'll respond to you directly with that, and that'll appear in the next meeting agenda. Sorry, Dave. Not at this stage. We'll take it on notice. Thanks, Dave. Public question number 4 is from David Kenwood, who's not here, but I will read it out. Council's draft plan delineates a yellow area deemed to be general camping, but does not differentiate between camping permitted for 5 months a year and the camping permitted on an annualized or permanent basis, i.e. what we all know as Little Toorak. This is an important point, given that there is in fact 3 categories of camping and caravanning being put forward in Council's new policies and the plan for Victoria Park. Can the definitions in the policy reflect this reality? And indeed, can the policy indicate whether or not future permanent occupation of public parkland in its present form is permitted under state government regulations? So David, who may be watching online, the Victoria Park policy will be considered by Council later in tonight's agenda. As such, we will address the question following the formal consideration of that agenda item. Question 5 is from Vicky Callahan. Vicky, you happy for me to read that out? Yep. And it's addressed to the CEO. You have recently been voted up a second term to Climate Emergency Australia Executive, along with members from Sydney, Darebin, Ballingen and Noosa advocating improvements to National Building Code. How does this marry with Queenscliff heritage classification? Most small towns appreciate and actively enhance the heritage profile, which includes the landscape. Rarely is this evident in Queenscliff. One hears the term heritage used frequently, but mostly from a negative perspective. There has been a proliferation of questionable architecture appearing on the skyline of late, both domestic and commercial. The abstraction and disjointed and jarring architecture ferry terminal, for example. The preservation of a town's heritage is reliant on enhancing streetscapes and landscapes, and the profile of horizons is an integral aspect to preservation. The insensitive placement of rubbish bins front and centre of the new library landscaping does not enhance the heritage component of Hesse Street's profile. Thank you, Vicky Callahan. I'll ask the CEO to respond to Vicky's question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Pillar 3 of Council's Climate Emergency Response Plan requires Council to advocate for improved sustainability in building design and energy use. This includes advocating for changes to the building code that would require new buildings and major renovations to have energy efficient features like better insulation, double glazed windows or passive heating and cooling. More sustainable building codes relate to a building's use of energy. They do not require the building to look a particular way. Architects and designers can incorporate sustainable design features in a range of ways, including ways that celebrate the heritage features of existing buildings. The soon-to-be-opened Queenscliff Hub, which retains the heritage facade of the library, is just one example of a heritage building in our community that has been upgraded in accordance with more sustainable design principles while maintaining the heritage elements of the building.
Thank you, Mr. CEO, and thank you for your question. Public question number 6 from David Connolly. It has been some time since the Borough measured canopy cover. It is some time since the Borough measured canopy cover was to be undertaken and completed. It is noted the Borough CEO has been renominated and elected again to Climate Emergency Australia. Has Climate Emergency Australia developed a specific local government policy on enhancing rather than diminishing or destroying canopy cover as a practical local climate emergency response? And if so, what has the Borough done in the past few months to protect and enhance its valued tree canopy? Sorry, Mr. CEO. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Thank you, David, for your question. Climate Emergency Australia has not developed a specific local government policy on increasing tree canopies.
Thank you. Thanks, David. It's pretty straightforward response. It's okay. Yes. Thank you for all the public questions. Item number 6, confirmation of council minutes. The recommendation, councillors, that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Council of the Borough of Queenscliff held on 27th of July 2022 as distributed be confirmed as an accurate record. Can I get someone to move that, Councillor Tolhurst, seconded? Councillor Grigo? All those in favour? Thank you. So passed. Item 7, record of informal meetings of councillors. A record of informal meetings of councillors is included at adjunct to item number 7. Councillors, can I get someone to move that? Yep. Councillor Hewitt?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move an amendment to replace for the planning review meeting on the 17th of August 2022, replace Councillor Johnny Grau with Councillor Michael Grau. Thank you.
Thank you. Someone like to second that with the change? Yep. Seconded, Councillor Tolhurst. All those in favour? Thank you. Item 8, notice of motion. There are no motions on notice outstanding. 8.2, motion on notice. 2 notices of motion were received. 8.2.1, motion of notice number 2022-585, Disability Lived Experience Reference Group. Councillor Tolhurst, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bit of background to this motion that in July 2022, this fine year, Council received a presentation from a Disability Lived Experience Advocate Group calling for the borough to increase its engagement with this community to ensure that we have greater access, inclusion and participation of people with a disability. The group identified that the contribution of lived experience is essential to ensuring not just access but true inclusion. And the presentation was delivered to council at a time when there's a Disability Royal Commission underway. So to my read, it is both right and proper that we get this right, and we get it right now in the borough. As such, and following the foreshadowing of a motion in the July ordinary meeting, I make the recommendation that council directs council officers to undertake an expression of interest process, inviting diverse community members to be part of a new Disability Lived Experience Reference Group. We direct council to officers to commence the expression of interest process in the second quarter of the 2022-23 financial year, and that we establish a terms of reference with the group with the key objectives of A, undertaking benchmarking to establish the number of people who identify as having a disability in the borough and key access issues they face. B, reviewing all council disability and access inclusion documentation, notably council's disability access and inclusion policy. And C, reviewing major council projects to ensure they meet the needs and ambitions of people with a disability in the borough.
Thank you, Councillor Tolhurst. That's moved by Councillor Tolhurst. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Hewitt. Did you want to speak further to your motion?
Yes, just very briefly to thank again the lived experience advocates who participated and brought this issue. I mean, the issue is persisting, but it was important that it was retabled with us. So very much looking forward to working with the group and fellow councillors, if the motion is passed, on getting this right in our community.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Tolhurst. Anyone else like to speak to? Yep, Councillor Hewitt.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Tolhurst, for the motion.
Sorry, you need to just put your microphone on. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Tolhurst, for putting the motion up today. I think it's a really important piece of work that we need to undertake to make sure that everything we do is for enabling full inclusion. I also very much look forward to working with the group and for it to be rolled out. So thank you again, and thank you to the group who came to present to us.
Thank you. Anyone else, Councillor Grigal?
No.
Okay, thank you. And I'd just like to add, well done, Councillor Tolhurst, on the work you've put into this motion today. So we do have a mover and a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you. That's all in favour. So passed. Thank you. Well done. 8.2.2, motion on notice number 2022-586, Environmental Reference Group. Councillor Hewitt, this one's yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I would like to move a motion by way of background. There's obviously a number of documents in play at the moment that we need to finalise, including the Coastal Marine Management Plan and Vegetation Management Policy, and also a number of documents that we need to implement, like the Climate Emergency Response Plan and the Water and Healthy Country Plan. We're also facing a number of environmental related issues in the borough, and we're very keen to work with our community to try and to the best possible resolve those. And so as part of that, we would like to establish an environmental advisory group, which can help us with that documentation and providing advice and advocacy on issues as they face the borough in relation to environmental and sustainability issues. So I'd like to move the motion that council establishes an environmental advisory group, which comprises members of the community and at least one councillor and council officer, with the purpose of A, providing strategic advice on the development, implementation and integration of policies, strategies and action plans relating to the environment, assisting council in identifying, making recommendations to and taking advocacy action on issues of environment and sustainability affecting the borough of Queenscliff, and C, encouraging and supporting activities and events which further environmental and sustainability outcomes in the borough of Queenscliff. 2, considers a framework for the environmental advisory group at the ordinary meeting to be held on the 28th of September 2022. And 3, directs council officers to commence an expression of interest process by the 30th of November 2022, inviting community members to join an environmental advisory group.
Thank you, Councillor Hewitt. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Seconded, Councillor Tolhurst. Councillor Hewitt, would you like to speak further to your motion?
Yes, I'd just like to thank all the community who have to date provided feedback and provided their personal and lived experience and expertise in relation to matters relating to the environment. They've been really valued, and I feel like that there's so much expertise in the community and can help us deliver the right outcomes for the borough of Queenscliff. I understand that an environmental advisory group has worked really well in the past, and I look forward to it continuing with the same success as we facilitate a new group. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hewitt. Anyone else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Tolhurst.
Just to thank councillors and officers for getting this in the agenda this month. There was quite a bit to fit in, but it's really good to see this one table, particularly at the moment we find ourselves in with issues of the environment. And I think just to reiterate what Councillor Hewitt said, that this is about acknowledging the immense knowledge, skills and generosity with the skills and knowledge that you have by way of bettering and preserving our environment.
Thank you, Councillor Tolhurst. Anything else, councillors? No, if not, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. So passed. Well done, Councillor Hewitt. Councillors, item 10, functions attended. The recommendation that the functions attended report be received. Can I get someone to move that, please?
I'll move that with an amendment.
Yep, Councillor Grigor.
22nd of July, I'm down for the Bellarine Safety Group meeting. Actually clashed with the meeting we had on the same day with Maddox, so I was unable to attend.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor Grigor. Someone to second that?
Sorry, no,
Sorry, Donny, that maybe move the mic a bit closer.
there's a amendment to the functions attended. The 22nd of July was the Bellarine Safety Group meeting. Actually, I was unable to attend because it clashed with the Maddox meeting on the same day and same time.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Grigor, for moving it and with the change there. Someone to second that? Second, Councillor Hewitt. All those in favour? Thank you. So passed. Item 11, Chief Executive Officer, 11.1, Chief Executive Officer report. Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And if I could take a moment of council's time just to recognise that one of our esteemed colleagues was admitted into Australian society yesterday by becoming an Australian citizen. And I'm really proud to say that Gihan not only passed his test with flying colours, but sent us some beautiful photos of him and his family celebrating their citizenship yesterday. So congratulations, Gihan, and it's great honour to have you.
Well done.
Thank you, Mr. I'll take generally the report as read, and I'm really comfortable to take some questions from councillors if there are any.
Sure. I will get someone to move and second it, and I'll open it up to questions. Someone move, Councillor Hewitt, seconded Councillor Tolhurst. Any questions for the CEO in regard to his report? No, I've just got one. So you looking forward to next month, talks about the completion of the boat ramp upgrade. Do we know when we're likely to open that to the public?
The Better Boating Victoria advised me this morning that they are planning to open it to the public on this coming Friday. And so their website will be updated to reflect that. And they're expecting that it'll be in full use this coming Saturday.
Okay, we could all go down and see how it works.
We could.
I think it's lucky it's not a hot summer's day and the tuna are running.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Mayor, I just want to
Sorry.
say, there's some good stuff, great stuff in here with the annual report award and the CEO nomination to Climate Emergency Australia, and also the finalisation of those projects. It's terrific. And also it's really good that we're moving to finalise the CMMP and also the annual plan. I think, you know, finalising those documents is really important as we move forward. So yeah, great work being done and to be done in relation to that. Right. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Hewitt. I also just to add that obviously in regard to the motion from the Borough of Queenscliff to the National General Assembly, for those people, a few years we've been advocating to not just the federal government, but also for the state government in regard to the temporary protection visas. So we're very pleased that got over the line, and thank you to my fellow councillors and also to my fellow councillors in the previous council as well, and obviously the work the CEO does in helping get that through. So we were very pleased that motion was put forward and was passed through at the local government association. So thank you. So we had a mover and a second. If there's no further questions, all those in favour? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. CEO. Item 12 is no reports to consider. 13, no reports to consider. 14, no reports to consider. Item 15, heritage planning and infrastructure. 15.1, planning permit activity report. Thank you, Tim.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councillors, members of the community and persons online. First item, I'd like to table the planning permit and activity report, item 15.1 on the agenda, prepared by a senior planner. I'll take the report as read. There are 26 active applications.
Thank you very much.
And any questions from councillors?
I'll just get someone to we accept the report. Moved by Councillor Grigal, seconded by Councillor Hewitt. Any questions, councillors, for him in regard to the activity report? Yep, Councillor Hewitt.
Thanks. Tim, I just wanted to the installation of the Telstra telecommunication tower. Is there any news that can be provided on that? That's the first.
Very first.
Nothing further than updated here, but I'll take that on notice,
Okay,
councillor, and get back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. If no further questions, we have a mover and a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you. Item 15.2, planning application 2022-04023 Williams Road, Point Lonsdale. Over to you again, Tim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The senior planner has prepared a report and presented it to the councillors. It relates to an assessment and recommendation for a planning permit application for construction of a second dwelling, alterations to an existing dwelling, subdivision of land into 2 lots, and removal of native vegetation on site. The planning application received 12 objections. The senior planner's assessment and recommendation does not support the planning application as detailed in the report. Councillors have had time to consider the report along with the planning review meeting last week. Over to Mayor and councillors for your decision.
Okay. Thanks, Tim. Councillors, we do have a recommendation there. Would someone like to move the recommendation? I will. Moved by Councillor Grigal. Someone to second that? Second, Councillor Tolhurst. Any questions for Tim in regard to this? No? I'll just before we put it to the vote, just want to thank those people who attended the planning review meeting last week. It was well attended and yeah, it was a really good result. So thank you, Tim. So it's moved and seconded. All those in favour? Thank you. So moved. Thank you. Well done.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Tim. Item 16, governance and finance. 16.1, review of council policies. Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Three policies that we reviewed that were due for review and we reviewed over the last couple of months. And I thank councillors for their input during that review process. I understand that I won't go into too much detail about each of the reviews, except to say that certainly the information privacy review was a administrative and housekeeping tidy up and reflected some changes in legislation. We've revised the events review, but I understand through discussions with councillors that they may want to have a bit more work on that, and a similar situation with the council resources support and facilities, which was revised to just as a check and to check that we were still in alignment with the Local Government Act 2020. Otherwise, happy to take questions and put the recommendation to you.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. We do have a recommendation, councillors. Councillor Hewitt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. CEO. As foreshadowed, I'd like to move a motion that council adopt CP 010, information privacy, and defer the consideration of CP 012 events and CP 018 council resources support and facilities. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Hewitt. So that's the motion put forward. Could we get someone to second that motion? Second is councillor Tolhurst. Councillor Hewitt, would you like to speak to your motion?
No, just as foreshadowed, just further time to consider and look at any amendments to the other policies.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, councillor Hewitt. Councillors, any other discussion? Councillor Tolhurst.
Feels right as the governance and finance portfolio holder. No, that just to note that in even my short term on council, a lot of these policy revisions have come forward, and it's great that we've got the opportunity to strengthen them and make them responsive to the environment in which we're existing, whether it's something like adapting our meeting style for COVID or ensuring they're as strong as possible. So just to note that I think this is a great process and it's keeping us more than just upholding our statutory obligations, but making these policies work for us and our community.
Thank you, councillor Tolhurst. Anything else, councillors? No, I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Thank you. So moved. Thank you. 16.2, draft revised governance rules. Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. So many of the members of the community may be aware that the Minister for Local Government has changed the Local Government Act to accommodate or to extend and put into place a permanent ability for councils to be held remote, council meetings to be virtually streamed, and for councillors to engage remotely into those council meetings. So we're just updating our governance rules to reflect that. And then we, through the process and through the requirements of the Act, we put that on public exhibition for community feedback. I think it's about 14 days and then it'll come back to council for consideration.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. CEO. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Tolhurst, thank you. Someone to second that one?
Thank you.
Councillor Grigao, thank you. Councillor Tolhurst, would you like to speak to the recommendation? No, you have. Okay. Any other councillors? No? That's fine. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. So moved. Thank you, Mr. CEO. Item 16.3, draft policy CP 054 Victoria Park. Mr. CEO.
Oh, through you, Mr. Mayor. I don't want to speak to this for too long because it's really the councils have done the hard work on this policy, and so I think I might just quickly hand it over to yourselves. But if there are any questions about the report or any information in the report, please feel free to ask.
Okay. So council, there is a recommendation that council adopt CP 054 Victoria Park. Someone like to move that motion?
I'd like to move with some amendments.
So it's not an amendment, but it's a move of your motion would be,
Yeah,
Right.
to edit the park management section of the policy. And that is to add item J, that council's management of the park will comply with relevant state legislation, policies and guidelines, including but not limited to improving equity of access to Crown Land Caravan and Camping Parks 2011 and Crown Land Caravan Parks Policy Update 2019. And the second amendment or modification is to change the Victoria Park Plan 2022, changing the 2 northern restricted sites, which are currently marked in green, and to make them become part of the Central Vegetation Reserve, which is marked in red in the centre.
thank you, councillor Tolhurst. Can I get someone to second the motion, please? Councillor Hewitt, thank you. Councillor Tolhurst, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank those that did make a submission. I think we had over almost 60 submissions, which is indicative of what both a hot issue this is, but also how much people care about how public land and trees are managed. So it was great to have such rigour and involvement, even with the short period we set, but also to note that the policy is one of that seeks continuous improvement. So it will be reviewed regularly, and we've built that into the policy, but also that it will lock into things like the Coastal Marina Management Plan once that's created and other important key documentation council's working on.
Thank you, councillor Tolhurst. Councillors, anyone like to speak? Councillor Hewitt?
Yeah, thank you. And reiterating what councillor Tolhurst said, thanks everyone for their submissions in relation to the proposed policy. It was really difficult because there was like a lot of the submissions were no camping whatsoever, and a lot of them were full camping, don't close any of the sites. And we in a lot of the part we are looking to create big vegetation reserves, so to try and at least in part get back some of the beautiful vegetation that's been lost in recent months. We were trying to strike the balance between, as we said at the last meeting, between enabling the vegetation to grow again, and also trying to safeguard some of the revenue generated by the park and enable it to be used into the future by not only residents, ratepayers, but visitors alike. We recognise in the policy that that it's really a preliminary policy, in that it will need to be looked at when we get further strategic documents which cover this site in place. It will also need to be revisited as the vegetation grows, and we can see the impact with continued camping in particular zones. We also acknowledge that a lot of reference in the submissions to enhancing Go Lightly as a future revenue stream, and so personally I would say that we are looking at things like that, but at the moment the policy is trying to safeguard the revenue that we currently get from the parks. In the community, really devastated by the impact of the storms, and thank the officers for working hard to get this policy up as quickly as possible, and thanks in advance for rolling it out. And very much look forward to the Jubilee planting, and thank the community for that terrific initiative.
Thank you, councillor Hewitt. Any other comments, councillors?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, councillor Grigor.
I actually have a major issue with this policy, is that because we actually don't have that key document of a coastal management plan. Our current coastal management plan was actually dated 2006, which actually we don't have access to on the website. This is pretty poor that we've got a 16-year-old document that we actually don't have to reference as a guiding paper for anything that we do. We are, management on coastal land, and we're not following, directions from the state government on key documents of that, plus a vegetation policy. I understand that we are both developing those documents, but we really shouldn't be sort of drafting up policies on just one specific caravan park when we have many to consider, and we should be looking at it as a holistic plan, not just an isolated park.
Thank you, Councillor Grigel. I'll just sort of comment that sometimes timing doesn't always work in council's favour, and sometimes we need to act quickly to move on certain things in the borough. So as you've alluded to, Councillor Grigel, we are working on the vegetation policy, management policy, and also the CWMP. So we certainly will be moving quickly ahead with those. But also just thank my fellow councillors for the work. As we all know, we've put in quite a number of hours on this policy, and to be able to turn it around quickly, and also to thank the officers for indulging us, I think, a little bit, but also putting up with the varying markups and the varying different guises that this policy has taken over the last month. So thank you to the CEO and to the officers for the patience they've had with us councillors. So we do have it moved and by Councillor Tolhurst and second by Councillor Hewitt. I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Those against? Thank you.
I'll call
So
for a
moved.
division, thanks.
Call the division. Thank you. So Jackie, we're just going to call a division on that one. So it was, as I said, it was moved by Councillor Tolhurst and second by Councillor Hewitt. All those in favour, which is Councillor Tolhurst, Councillor Hewitt, Councillor Ebbels, and those against, Councillor Grigel. You okay if I move on, Jackie? Thank you. Item 17, authorisation of signing and sealing of documents. There are no reports to consider. Item 18, questions without notice. 18.1, questions without notice, status update. Sorry, I do apologise. I did mean to go back to David Kenwood's public question, so I do apologise for that. Given that we've just changed the plan, we will need to change the Victoria Park Plan 2022. So I will take that David's question on notice, and we will have to update that plan, and we'll get back to David with that, Mr. CEO. Yep. Thank you. Sorry, everyone, about that. I was a bit too quick. Public questions, question without notice. Councillors, do we have any questions without notice to the CEO? No. Councillor Hewitt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to just ask in relation to, we've had some recent environmental vandalism, and also we've had the bylaws review recently. So I'd just like to ask about what activities the borough will be undertaking to address enforcement issues in the short term. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you for your question, Councillor Hewitt. If you don't mind, I might take that on notice. Probably needs a bit of thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Hewitt. Any other questions without notice? No.
No.
Thank you very much, everyone. Item 19, list of council meetings. As you can see, planning review meeting if required on the 14th of September. Council next ordinary meeting, 28th of September. Before we go into closed session, I just wanted to thank our communications manager, Connor Parker, who is leaving us to go on to bigger, and I'm not too sure if it could be better things, but sort of bigger things in the big smoke. So on behalf of everyone in our community, thank you. And particularly from my perspective, obviously, you and I got to know each other quite well during COVID, and we had to do a lot of ad hoc videos and a lot of live streaming and a lot of comms. So personally, thank you for the support you've given me, but also obviously the support you've given your fellow officers and your councillors. And also we know we're in capable hands with Matt. I think he's well and truly taking off the training wheels, and he's well and truly in control. So thank you very much, Connor, for your input and help to the Borough of Queenscliff. Well done. Thank you. Councillors, item 20, closed session of meeting, the recommendation that in accordance with section 66(1) and 66(2)A of the Local Government Act 2020, the meeting be closed to the members of the public for the consideration of the following confidential items, which is one only tonight, which is 20.1, confirmation of 27 July 2022 confidential council meeting minutes. Can I get someone to move that? Move Councillor Hewitt, second Councillor Tolhurst. All those in favour? Thank you. And to thank all those people in the gallery, and I'm hoping that you could hear us a bit better tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.